going to get started. So this is Martha. She is in our cyber department, which helps us and does most of our cyber business. So we're going to just run through some education, and then feel free to ask any questions along the way. You can interrupt. So we'll go ahead and get started.
Yeah, you can also stick any questions you have in the chat, and we can kind of get Martha's attention if that's how you want to do it. But yeah, thanks for coming, guys.
Yeah, just let me know because I don't see the chat on my side, so just stop me. Good afternoon, everybody. Happy Friday. And I'm sorry, I apologize for my voice. I sound a lot worse than I feel. So I'm really excited to be talking to everybody. And the way I like to present is I have a presentation, but you are the people that are, I want you to feel comfortable in getting what you want answered today. You may have no preconceived notions about what this is about, and you may not have like, oh no, I don't want to go in that direction, I want to go in this direction. But I really want you guys to interrupt, as Lyndon said, and ask questions, and we can certainly go away, take questions maybe outside. I just want to make sure that you're taking your time, which we so appreciate, that I answer anything that maybe you have thought about in the last couple weeks that maybe you wanted to ask. I want to make sure of that. So anyway, I'm Martha Oddo. I have been working in the phenomenal roller coaster of a ride, cyber um, world since 2012. I'm an underwriter, and so much has changed. It's ever changing. It's by insurance standards, it's a baby product. Liability's been around 100 years. Cyber liability has only been around since the early 2000s. So it is definitely a baby, which means that you are not only the ones that need to learn about it, but I continue to learn every day, I hope. And my the agents, Sarah, um, is also learning. And I think this product is more about education than anything. So hopefully you'll get some new points today that you can maybe look at for your practice. But anyway, it's just ever evolving. It never changes. I honestly thought last year that, okay, we're going to get everybody educated on MFA and then we'll be good to go. And that didn't happen. It happened. I got a lot of people educated, but there were little tweaks and changes out there in our world that made it like, okay, well, now I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about fishing. So anyway, let's go to the first slide. I put this up here just as a quick reminder. I think that RK Tung actually sent this out. It is an FBI warning sent out to dental practices last May, just talking about the fact that they had intel, that was going to possibly, or meant that dental practices were going to be hit on in the rest of last year through this year. And just to give you a little bit of history on that, the FBI puts out these warnings pretty regularly. And in 2023, they warned plastic surgeons that those offices were being targeted. So they just moved a little bit in 2024. And I certainly had a few claims. So they're definitely out there and working on it. Now, first, we need to see why you are at risk. And I get some questions on this frequently. There's data processors and there's data owners. If you own a practice, you technically own your patient's data. So you are the data owner. You're responsible for anything that happens to that data. If you send an x-ray off to be looked at somebody else and that somebody else has a breach, then that means that you're responsible for notification not the person that you send it to, because they are an indirect relationship. It's direct relationships. If you use a credit card swiper, I call it the swipers, that's again, it goes off to some third party processor. If that processor has a breach or an incident or anything, again, it's your responsibility, not theirs. So that's one of the reasons that you need to realize that this coverage is basically all about you, not about the data processing, the people who, whether it's like I said, a credit card, or you do your billing through a third party, anything like that. It is your responsibility. And I'll give another type of example, and I call it my fun fact for Friday too, because it's very interesting to me. Of course, I do this every day, but some of you may have been affected or knew another dentist that was affected by the Change Healthcare attack in February of 2024. And that was, in fact, a ransomware attack. And there, at the last report that I got a week ago, there were 190 million victims on that little breach. And what's interesting is the breach happened in February. I don't think anybody, I mean, not only dentists were affected, but there's so many medical professionals were affected by this. I don't think they notified the people until May what actually happened, that they would do credit monitoring and all that. It just, because most laws around notifications are very vague, and they may say within a reasonable amount of time. Well, you're reasonable, or my reasonable is today. Their reasonable can be 90, 120 days down the line. But the fun facts about this are that Change Healthcare processed 50% of the medical healthcare claims in the US. They did about $1 billion a day. And there were the ransom, it was a ransom. They paid out of pocket $22 million. Why, you might ask? Because they did not have cyber coverage, number one. Number two, they had looked into it, and one of the carriers had said, we will not even offer you a quote because you do not have MFA in place. So they were aware. I can imagine the class action on this. They were aware before that they needed to get MFA. They chose not to implement MFA, and this is where it landed them. So they gave them all, the carrier gave them a whole blueprint on where they needed to go and what they needed to do. They chose not to. Ended up paying 22 million. Now, I use that because it probably affected some of you on the call, but I also was hesitant to use it because I don't want you to think we're no Change Healthcare. I don't even need to listen to the rest of her presentation, because I do that one because, again, it's very interesting to me, but by and large, it's a lot smaller businesses that in fact get hacked, or if they get hacked or have incidents that occur. And that's all I have are small businesses below 35 million in revenue. So, and most of those below 10.
Martha, could I ask?
Sure.
Was the 22 million paid what the company had to pay to the ransom people to get their systems back, or that's what they paid to people in class action lawsuits?
Oh no, the class actions are just starting. No, the 22 million was to the hacker.
Wow. Okay.
I know. Can you imagine? That's unbelievable. And
Yeah.
unbelievable that you do $1 billion worth of business a day and you don't secure your stuff. I mean, they should, in my opinion, they should have been blown up, done, give it to somebody else, but there's nobody else. They've kind of got a monopoly.
Right.
on it. Unfortunately, they have, other things. They have the Office of Civil Rights and the FBI have looked into them, but they didn't. And the FTC actually fought. United Healthcare owns them, sued them when United Healthcare bought them because they thought it was causing monopoly, and they lost. They lost the suit. So just random information for you.
Yeah.
But um, in the breaches that I deal with, a couple of years ago, I did have, and I still have a random ransomware, but most of them are not hacking. Most of them are caused by human error. That's what I see on, hopefully not a daily basis, but about a monthly basis. I get a claim going. Again, I I give you this $22 million thing and say that there are misconceptions that only those big companies are are hacked, but those are the ones that make the media. Those are the ones that you see on TV. You don't see a small company because they really don't care, and it doesn't make big news. But these are some of the misconceptions, which I've already mentioned. That we use a payment card, credit card processor, so we don't have any exposure. Yes, you do. You own the data. We have an IT department, so do we, but we still get a lot of things going on. So I just wanted you to point that out. This is probably my favorite slide of any presentation that I've ever done because it tells you what happened. We call it, you'll notice I don't see a breach. I don't say breach. I say discovery of an incident until we pass it along to an attorney that specializes in these in data breaches. That's all they do all day long. It's just like medical. You don't want to go to a general practitioner to have your appendix removed. You go to a surgeon, and it's the same way now with all of these breaches. Everything attorneys are as specialized as doctors when it comes to this. You want somebody that this is all they do every day. So we discover an incident, or you do, and you send it in immediately. It can be you walk in tomorrow morning and you turn on your computer and the screen is black and it says, "You've been ransomed, pay me Bitcoin." Or it can be, and I've had this happen more than once, you're adding a dentist to your practice, maybe a specialist, and you want to let the world know, and you're going to send a email blast out. We've got an orthodontist now, so you don't have to leave us. Come to us. And the person who does the email blast forgets to blind CC all of your clients, your patients. So 500 emails go out, and I can see everybody's email address on there. Happens more often than you think. So we need to figure out. So the attorney, first person to look at it is the attorney, even if it's ransomware, because we need the attorney to then there's attorney-client privilege because they're the ones that say, okay, call a forensic IT. Okay, do this, do that. Or they do sometimes say this doesn't meet, depending on the state, because every state has different laws regarding privacy. So they look at the state and then they say, yes, this is, or no, this isn't, and we move on. There can be, like I said, a forensic if we need to figure out that if it was a ransomware, we need to figure out, did they actually take data or did they just ransom you and not bother? And frankly, they're getting so much money ransom, a lot of times they're not taking the data anymore. Um, like I said, Change Healthcare, 22 million. The breaches are the ransoms that I see in my smaller dental practices typically start at about 60 grand. But we also have specialists now. Another fun fact in this world of cyber, that's what they do all day. They negotiate with the hacker and say, we're not paying 60K. We'll pay 10K. And then they come back with 30K. And then it goes back. It's crazy, but it's true. I wish I had been the person that had the brainchild to create that company. They're making tons of money right now. But we also have that person. We look at it and try to get it. Most of mine pay between 10 and 30 grand if they pay out at all. So short term, we're trying to figure out what we're going to do. Do we need to notify? Do we have to offer credit monitoring if in fact something was, if we feel like they got social security numbers or credit card numbers or anything like that? And if it's, I don't know that any of my claims have had public relations nightmares that some of these bigger things, hospitals that you see when you watch the news and you see, them talking about the hospital, which happened in my area recently. That's that is a public relations company that tells Tampa General Hospital what they can release and how to release it. Definitely don't want to be doing that on your own. And then finally, there might be class action lawsuits and things like that. What is the beauty of this particular coverage is that Beasley jumps in right here. I've been doing this since, I told you, since 2012. I wouldn't know where to start. So there's somebody there to handhold you. You don't have to go try to figure out, what do I do? How do I get my work back? You don't have to go to the Geek Squad, or anything like that. Because it's if I was a business owner, this would be the thing that got me, because I wouldn't know what to do and how do you move around and and I don't have 30,000 or 10,000 or $5,000 laying around to just pay. And I don't know how to buy Bitcoin either. So that's what is what to me really stands out. Yes, you want the money back. You don't want to have to pay $10,000 or 30, but you also want it stopped before it can damage your reputation, or B, they decide, okay, they're mad at you and they are going to take data from you, those types of things. And I will take a moment to talk about, I'm going to show you this screen first. This is just a little history about ransomware in particular, because it turned this coverage on its head. Insurance carriers around the world felt this happen, and things went crazy. As an underwriter in the marketplace, it was just nuts. And you can see why. I mean, they go from 336 claims in 1 year to 775. Of those claims, 62% were small businesses, which is so interesting because we only hear about the 38% on the news. They get through by remote desktop protocols and remote desktop gateways and what they call spear phishing. Does everybody know what spear phishing is? Let me just tell you real quick. Anybody?
I've never heard of it. So
Do you know what it is, Lyndon?
no, I've never heard of
Sarah,
it.
do you know?
I don't know.
That's where I guess the best example I have is where when Target was breached, people who had Target credit cards a month or two later were getting emails from hackers saying, "We know you have we know you had a Target a Target credit card, and we can offer you blah 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 blah, whatever it was." Target didn't do it. Blue Shield, Blue Anthem, when they had that, um, same thing happened. They sent emails, not they being the hackers, sent emails or bad actors sent emails to people with Blue Cross Blue Shield insurance saying, click here and you get your 12 months of free credit monitoring. Blue Cross Blue Shield never sent that out. They only do snail mail for just that reason. Because you and I don't know when we get an email saying click here if we should.
Right. So spear
So
phishing is kind of like a more targeted version of
it
general
is.
phishing. Right.
Yes.
Okay.
General phishing. Mhm. Yes, exactly. And that leads me to um, if you get nothing else from today, nothing else, please, please, please talk about phishing emails with your staff. 5 minutes. It's not that big. You can certainly do more, but all of my claims last year were phishing regarding payroll or a vendor. For example, office manager. I went from Chase Bank to Bank of America. Please start depositing my paychecks into my new Bank of America account immediately. And yet these were very small. For me, because I do this every day, I'm like, and why didn't the office manager say, Martha, I got your email. Your next paycheck will go into your new account. And I say, no, I didn't open a new account. So please don't. But it's just that simple. Don't do anything you get by. I know most of you write checks if you have a refund. I just got one from my dentist. But if you pay anybody online, if you pay your electric bill or anything, then and you get an email from that vendor, or if you do pay patients, if direct deposit, put money in their accounts as a refund, pick up the phone, call, whether it's the client or your employee. Two examples. I had one last week. They got in through the owner's AOL account. Somehow they got into their payroll and they before it was caught, they got $47,000 and tried to get another 278,000. Thank God the bank thought this was weird and didn't pay that and notified the practice, hey, we think something's going on with your account. That was last week. And then, I mean, just others are just the same kind of thing. Just double, triple, whatever check before you change any accounting information or routing information for any kind of bank information. Those claims in 2023 went up 56%. They beat out ransomware for the first time. And based on what I've seen, I haven't got numbers yet, but for 24, but my 24 was just the same. And the average claim was 100,000. I didn't see that. Um, my claims were 10,000, 5,000, but still more than I have in my pocket to pay out. So that's my lecture, phishing protocols. Please, please, please. And then the other two things I'll mention are MFA. and critical patches. A lot of carriers won't write you if you don't have MFA in place for any remote access. And the pandemic, kind of started this whole remote access. I know office managers that never come into the office anymore because they did it during the pandemic and now they just work from home still. So it has to be remote access, whether it's to your computer system to do charting or whatever, check up on things, or your email system to look and see if you got an email over the weekend, somebody's canceling their Monday morning 8 a.m., that type of thing. As much as phishing is an issue, MFA really, really cuts down on the number of claims and the ways that people can get in to your um, systems. And it's not that much. Everybody when I say I can't write this policy, or if I'm going to write the policy, typically cyber extortion coverage is the policy max. So let's just say, for example, the policy max is $1 million and the deductible typically 2,500 for a ransomware, cyber extortion, it's also called. If you don't have MFA, the coverage drops from 1 million to $100,000 and the deductible goes from 2,500 to 25,000. That's how important carriers see MFA.
And what does MFA stand for?
Multi-factor authentication. You can
Yeah,
do,
I guess Martha, if you want to give some examples,
yes,
also.
there are a couple of different ones. Um, and it's not when the pushback I get from dentists is I can't do MFA every time my hygienist wants to get in the computer and make a note or take x-rays. That's not what I want MFA for. If in fact the dentist on the weekends wants to look at what's coming up on Monday and look at the file like, oh, I'm doing this root canal for this person on tooth number 22. That's what I'm talking about. Remote access, multi-factor. For me, um, I get a which most of you do. I mean, it's for my bank, it's for the company I work for. Um, I get a text to my phone that gives me 6 digits, my cell phone, and then I put those 6 digits in. Now, when I'm, hospitals, I've seen that they type in their password and then they scan their little ID badge. And that's their type of multi-factor. Sometimes you can put it built in. Some bigger companies build it in, but I've not had anybody ever when they implement it complain about the pricing. It just doesn't, it might be, you have an IT vendor and they do, you know, um, your typical IT stuff. And maybe you saw A to C when you said, yes, I want package with A to C cover, A to C, you do that for me. And maybe there was another coverage offer that had D, E, and F, and that's where MFA came in, and you just didn't notice. But it's typically not that big of a deal to get it turned on. Um, and it is typically like an email. If you use Microsoft Outlook, there's actually an authenticator app that you can put on your cell phone, and it actually sends you a code instead of getting a text. It comes through the app, the um, Microsoft multi authentication app. So that's what it is. Just a way to prove because frankly, passwords are so easy. And especially now with the hacker, the way that bad actors can get in and get your password. Um, that's why it's one step beyond. You have a password and it's one step beyond that password. Any questions on that? Did I make
Yeah,
sense?
yeah, Martha too. I'm sure a lot of people here are probably wondering what the price is. At least for what we see 90% of the time. One dentist, one full-time dentist is probably around, what would you say, Martha? 850, $900 a year is usually pretty
Yeah,
standard.
about 900.
Yeah, based on the number of doctors or associates. And also too, I know everybody is not necessarily my client, but if you guys are interested in cyber insurance or you want to get a quote, I'll drop the application in the chat. You can fill it out and send it to whoever your agent is, and they'll be able to get you a quote.
And I also, I can also send to you so that you can drop it in the chat too. There's an MFA. I actually pulled it up this morning so that I'd be able to just have it. So let me copy that. Um, and I'm just going to send it to you in an email real quick. So you can put it in the chat.
Yeah, and any links we stick in the chat will also, like, there'll be an email after the event just with the links and a couple things to remind you of what we talked about in the meeting afterwards as well. So if you don't see it in the chat right away, just look out for an email from us in the near future.
Okay. And that's really all I have. I'd like to just answer questions, or if I miss something that you have a question about. Um,
Talk about your the Microsoft Outlook. Can you talk about that multi-factor authentication one more time? I just want to, because I do obviously use Outlook. I want to hear about that MFA option on the app. Could you just repeat that one more time, please?
yes, I can. Um, MFA is
And I
a.
understand what MFA is. I'm a big supporter of it. I use it on
Oh, okay.
everything. So I want to make
Then
sure I've got it everywhere I can possibly have in my dental
it,
office. Particularly concerned about emails that I might get from dental offices. We are a specialty practice. We get stuff from general dentist. And every time before I open it, I'll look at it to make sure it is from the person I'm expecting it to come from, the practice, I should say. But I do have concerns about that. So I want to know how I can protect our practice the best. Because
yeah,
obviously that's not all MFA related. So please help me
right,
out with that. And we do have decent,
right.
by the way. Okay.
No, and are you looking at this in the office, or you're talking about out of office when you open that
In the
email?
office, remote stuff is all MFA. So
Okay,
that's
so
yeah,
in the office,
totally in the office, sitting at my
that
computer.
that's not as easy. That multi-factor wouldn't help with that. I think what you're doing is wonderful, that you're like, okay, they called me, they told me they have a referral on John Smith, but
Hmm.
I swear to you, I just did it this week. I Googled something, I got something for, and I interact with a lot, and I do a lot of surveys, for lack of a better way to put it, where they want to know, what am I seeing? What do I need? What do they need to do for me? And I hadn't gotten one from this particular vendor before. So I literally Googled the vendor. You wouldn't have to do that because you know the practice. But
Right.
I called and said, I got an email, actually I emailed them
Mm.
and said, did you send this link out? Because I'm not touching it until you tell me yes. And they're like, yes, we did. But um, I guess if you talk to them beforehand, and they say, we're sending you this patient today, and you don't get it today, maybe you go tomorrow, you could, if you, I know it's a lot of time, but the only way to really, really be sure is say, this came from, call the practice
Okay.
and say, Martha sent me this at 11 a.m. this morning. I don't want to open it until I know for sure. I know that
Okay.
seems radical and dramatic,
It
but
does, but I want to protect myself. So you're suggesting, because not every practice tells me before they send it to me. So you're saying before I open any email from any practice, call them and say, hey, did you send me this? I'm Martha.
that's what I do because that's your business. So if somehow a bad actor got into your system somehow
Right.
on the back end, they don't hit you right now while we're on the phone and say, here, I'm ransoming you. They watch what you're doing
Hmm.
for sometimes up to 30 days. They may be able to figure out your password. They may be able to figure out that, oh my gosh, they get 10 emails a day regarding patients that are being referred to them. I'm going to become a patient that's being referred to them, and they can do it.
Okay.
So that's kind of why I highly encourage. I know, like I said, it's a pain in the neck, but hopefully they'll pick up quickly and you won't have to leave a message and all of that stuff. So you can get on with your opening and figuring out what you need to do with your patient.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
we get some emails like that sometimes too. They look strange, and they may look like someone you've communicated with before, but actually, if you check the email address, if you click on it, it won't be the actual email address from what you're used to seeing from that particular company or vendor or patient or whomever. So usually, a lot of times, you can just catch it that way and delete it.
Right. And look carefully because our brains are wired. Like when we see HTE, my brain sees THE because that's what I'm used to. And they're just little things like, it's Smith. Okay, well, Smith is spelled SMYTH. And I know Dr. Smith doesn't have a Y, he has an I. So when you're hovering, they call that hovering over an email address. Let me see if I can pull
Yeah, I
an
mean, they'll
email.
change the smallest things that you may not even notice. They'll change a letter, they'll change the trend where the letters are listed, they'll add a number. I mean, they'll do a lot of different things to try and make you not realize what's happening.
Mhm.
And is it more about not clicking links in the email rather than not opening the email, or is
For the
opening?
most part. I mean, sometimes, and I'm
Yes.
sure Martha, yeah, it's probably a lot less rare from someone just opening an email, but I think a
Yeah.
lot of it is just clicking on links into email because I
Right.
guess that kind of like allows them into like a screen mirroring probably like situation. I don't really know exactly, Martha, you probably know more, but I'm sure that it probably does that. And, a lot of times with them waiting, they'll sit there and they'll wait till you pull up financials, until you pull up collections, until, because they want to know exactly how much money they can likely get out of you. So there's a lot of things that they're waiting to see for you to do, which is why they don't do it right away.
Yeah, I've heard of incidences. It's crazy how long they watch. And for new hires, within 24 hours of a new hire going to work at a business, they would get an email saying, "Oh, you need to sign up for this. Click." And it wasn't them. Um, so it's amazing. I swear we could cure cancer if these people would use their brains for other, other endeavors than getting something for nothing. And the way they do these, they're bulk emails. That's why I said they don't care, they pick, and I've seen a lot of claims geographically. It's interesting. They'll pick an area, attack that area for whatever reason. I don't know how or why, but that's what they do.
Yeah,
So,
like in Maryland, if you're in Montgomery County, which is probably the most expensive county in Maryland, they're probably going to do that more than they are somewhere else, probably in the county more than others. And a lot of the
mhm.
times, a lot of these claims originate from employees, office managers, probably people that may not be paying as much of attention or just trying to, get through emails and click on links that probably isn't something they would have normally. And that's where a lot of this stuff comes from.